All right, let's dive right in. Today, we are talking about a huge decision for any startup founder: how to hire the right social media team. And let's be clear, this isn't about getting someone to just post pretty pictures. This is about building a real powerhouse growth engine for your business. So, you're ready to hire a social media team. This is one of the biggest brand decisions you're going to make. Get it right, and that team can absolutely supercharge your growth. But get it wrong? That's a really costly mistake. So let's make sure you get it right. It all starts with understanding the most important shift happening in social media today. First things first, you have to get that the goalposts for social media have completely moved. It's no longer just about being seen or making noise. It's a performance channel, plain and simple. And this really breaks it down. The old way was all about visibility, chasing likes, amassing followers, all that stuff. But today, it's all about real, tangible business outcomes. We're talking leads, conversions, and a measurable return on your investment. So remember, you're not just hiring a content person, you're hiring a growth partner. And you have to make sure any team you're even thinking about knows the difference. So that brings us to our first big area, the strategic blueprint. This is where you really test if a potential team is thinking about your core business goals right from day one. The first question you should ask them is so simple, but it is incredibly revealing. Where should we be active and why? Their answer tells you everything you need to know about their strategic thinking. If they give you a generic, "Oh, you should be everywhere," that's a massive red flag. A great team, on the other hand, will back up every single one of their choices with data. They'll show you why your customers are on certain platforms. They will map out specific types of content for each channel, because what works on LinkedIn is not going to work on Instagram Reels. And that, right there, is the difference between a team that just checks boxes and one that builds a real winning strategy. Okay, next up, and this one is absolutely vital. What KPIs will we track regularly? This is the question that separates the teams who are focused on fluff from the teams who are focused on value. You have to know what success actually looks like in hard numbers. And here's the honest truth. A team might try to impress you with likes and shares. We call those vanity metrics. Sure, they feel good, but they don't pay the bills. What you as a founder have to demand focus on are the business metrics. Things like qualified leads, your cost for acquisition, the CPA, and actual signups for your product. You need to be asking them, are your activities lowering our CPA? Are you actually helping us keep customers? That is the real test of value. All right, so once you're on the same page with strategy, you have to find out if they can actually deliver. And that leads us to our second section, the execution playbook. This is all about the nuts and bolts of how they get things done, day in and day out. Here's a fantastic question to really dig into how they operate. What's your process for creating and scheduling content? What you're listening for here is proof of a system. See, great teams plan with real intention. They don't just throw random posts out there to fill up a calendar. A really solid answer will show you they have a system. You want to see a detailed social calendar that lines up with your product launches, not just random holidays. You should ask them about their mix of content formats. Do they get why a reel is the right call here, but a carousel is better over there? And finally, you have to insist on a crystal clear feedback process. Trust me, without that, you are heading straight for bottlenecks and frustrating delays. Now, for a real pressure test, you've got to ask them, how do you handle a social media crisis? Because listen, things will go wrong at some point. A post will land the wrong way. A trend will backfire. Their answer to this one question tells you if they're professionals or if they're amateurs. A strong answer has to include a protocol. How do they assess the problem right away? Who gets the emergency call when things get serious? Do they have pre-approved brand-safe messages ready to deploy? Look, a professional team builds the fire escape before the fire starts. Make sure they have a playbook. And while we're on the topic of process, let's talk team structure. A well-oiled machine needs everyone to have a clear role. The manager is the one who owns the big picture strategy and the results. Then you have the executive and specialist who are on the ground handling the day-to-day content and community engagement. And of course, the creative team makes it all look and sound great. Ask a potential agency how these roles all fit together. If there's a missing link in this chain, it can break your entire social media engine. All right, finally, we're at our third section, and you could argue it's the most important one of all: measuring what matters. How is this team going to prove their value and connect all their hard work back to your bottom line? So you need to ask them this: how do you link your organic content with our paid ad campaigns? This is the question that unlocks the magic. This is where social media goes from being just a content channel to a legitimate growth engine. The two sides, organic and paid, they absolutely have to work in harmony. And here's what that actually looks like. A growth-focused team will take the data from your best-performing organic posts and use it to create better, smarter ads. They'll constantly tweak your calls to action based on what real users are doing, and they'll retarget the people who've already raised their hands and shown interest. It becomes this amazing, virtuous cycle where organic and paid make each other smarter and way more effective. So, with all that going on, how will you know if any of it's working? You ask them. How are we going to evaluate performance every week and every month? And I'll give you a little hint. A giant spreadsheet full of raw numbers is not a good answer. You should be expecting way more. You should be looking for dashboards with real-time data, so you're not waiting a whole month to figure out what's going on. The report should give you actionable insights, not just a data dump. It should tell you what worked, what didn't, and most importantly, what experiments they're going to run next to get even better results. So as we start to wrap this all up, there's one last question, but this one, it's really for you, the founder, to think about. Just let that sink in for a second. This isn't about you micromanaging anyone. It's about you doing your job, which is to make sure that your brand's voice, its impact, and its performance are in the absolute best hands possible. Asking these tough questions is how you do that. It's how you protect and grow your company. And that really brings us to the final, ultimate question that you need to answer for yourself. Is your social media just a calendar filler, posting stuff for the sake of posting? Or is it a genuine, data-driven growth engine that's pushing your business forward? The choice you make and the team you hire is going to make all the difference in the world. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.